morning, Dog Pound South campers. This is the Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast, part of the Fanatical L's Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network, brought to you by Hemisphere Coffee. Okay, well, first week's in. I know there's been a lot of clutching of pearls about the practice schedule this past week. Just remember, they're in shorts, t-shirts, and helmets. They're not in pads. Next week on Monday, well, tomorrow, according to Kevin Stefanski, they're going to put the pads on. So you're going to see a big difference in the way things turn out. But I know a lot of people have been complaining that they're using a different practice field for the rookies, but I'd like to look at it in a different light, that they are maximizing their time. They are trying to figure, if you want a rookie to start, if you're a fan of Shedeur Sanders and you want him to start, you would rather have him practicing on a separate field than standing and not doing anything. Okay? Let's think logically about this. So even though I've said that they don't want a rookie to start, they don't. But if one shows the ability to start and win, then they will not be afraid to put him out there. So it's a good thing that he's on another field, getting reps in the offense. Same with Dillon Gabriel. They both need as many reps as possible. Same thing with Kenny Pickett. Now, I've talked to a few people who were at practice yesterday, who know a lot more football than I do. And the three people that I talked to, consensus, Joe Flacco is head and shoulders above the other quarterbacks. And that should not surprise anybody. He knows the offense. He did say it was similar to 23, but not the same as 23. He said that in an interview this week. So, yes, Joe Flacco is, barring injury, is going to be your starter week one against Cincinnati. I am fully convinced of that. Each one of them, and they don't know each other. Each one of them said he still has a live arm. It still has zip. We're back to, paying attention to the zip of the ball. I don't know what the hell that is, but if these guys say. But even Bill Musgrave called him a flamethrower, 6'6" flamethrower. So, barring any injury, Joe Flacco is going to be your starter, and I have no problem with that. I know he's 40 years old. He did not get hurt last year with Indy. Anthony Richardson got hurt a lot, and Joe came in and stunk up the joint a couple of games. He did go in and beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh, 27-24. No turnovers. So, with Joe Flacco, you get what you get. He is great at play action, and that's what this offense needs. Pickett, not so great at play action because they never ran play action with the Steelers because they didn't really have a running game. The same with Sanders. Sanders the offense was get the ball out of his hand quickly before he gets sacked because he had a terrible offensive line. So Gabriel, more experience in play action. But like I said, I don't see a rookie starting, and a rookie shouldn't start. Joe Flacco is going to be the starter, barring an injury. I have talked about DeJuan Jones several times. I had found out that before he got hurt, he was pushing over 400 pounds, and that does not help him. Well, right now, someone told me that he's down to 292, and he wants to play at 295. Think about that. He weighs 292 pounds after being plus 400. He's showing dedication to the offseason workout, and he's keeping the weight off. I still think Cornelius Lucas is going to start at left tackle. They want to make sure DeJuan Jones is not only with the program, but stays on the program. Once the season starts, a lot of players get away from conditioning, and he did last year. He did. He ballooned up, and it did not help him. And they want to make sure that he is going to stay on the program. If he does, he's going to be your starting left tackle. But I would start Cornelius Lucas. I've said that. And this guy that I have wanted before free agency even started. So, other news this week, Jordan Hicks retired. They didn't know for sure he was going to retire. They had a pretty good idea. I've heard some people that are knowledgeable in this situation. That's why they went. They had a large linebacker room, which for this team is unusual. They don't put a lot of emphasis on linebacker, just like the Eagles. That's where Andrew Berry learned to do his stuff. And Schwartz's defense, base defense, you have two linebackers and three safeties. That's his defense. That's what he runs. So, and it did seem unusual. They had a large linebacker room, especially when they signed Jerome Baker. And then they drafted Carson Schlesinger, which makes perfect sense, which also the guys at training camp yesterday told me he's bigger than a lot of people think he is. He's quick. So I would still feel a little better if they brought in a veteran linebacker to help him. A name I keep hearing is Eric Kendricks. I would be happy with Eric Kendricks on a one-year deal. Why not? Bring him in. Let him, let Schlesinger still be the middle linebacker with the green dot, but Kendricks could help him tremendously. And besides, I have full faith in Jason Tarver, the linebacker coach. He used to be defensive coordinator, interim defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders, and he was a defensive coordinator for my alma mater, Vanderbilt. So I know about Jason Tarver. He's smart and he's good, and considering how much money they do not invest in the linebacker position, he's gotten the most of those guys. So I am happy with Jason Tarver as the linebacker coach. Signed a few more players this week, KJ Henry and Winston Wright. And these two guys, you'll sit there and you'll hear people say, well, they're just camp bodies. Just like Jackson Barton, the offensive lineman they signed. They're camp bodies. Well, all three of these guys have something in common. And it took a little research to look at, but I will tell you that after the break. Okay. Special teams. Jackson Barton and KJ Henry play very good special teams. Winston Wright primarily is a kick returner. So he is primarily going to be put on the practice squad because we all know the history of the last 3 years of return men, especially punt return guys for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, a couple of them never even made the field. It got hurt in training camp. Nyheim Hines never even made it to training camp. So they've got DeAndre Carter, who I am completely happy with. Productive punts and kicks. Jerome Ford, very good at kickoffs. So, but what I'm noticing is these depth guys all play special teams very well. So they are making a concerted effort to improve the special teams, and I'm happy about that. Special teams is one of my bugaboos. You have a bad special teams and your season is in the toilet, as we saw last year, where they could not tackle anybody. Coverage was terrible. They had a few bright spots, but, punt return just out the window. I mean, Pierre Strong is a nice running back, but how many times can you fair catch a punt? All right. Wide receivers, for all you people that worried about Cedric Tillman, he was back on the practice field yesterday after a lower leg injury. I want to remind everybody to just wait before we have our knee-jerk reaction to an injury. I saw a lot of stuff on social media. Oh, Andrew Berry can't pick a wide receiver. Well, guess what? He's back on the practice squad. I mean, back on the practice field. Let's see, but he does need to step up, and he does need to stay healthy. Deontay Johnson has been kind of quiet, but he's still running routes. He's still working with all four quarterbacks. Caught a touchdown pass yesterday from Shedeur Sanders, so that's good to see. I hear Jerry Jeudy is just a monster. He is just, he's better than he was last year. That's what everybody tells me. So I'm completely happy about that. Luke Floria has caught a lot of people's eyes. I really don't see him making the roster, but I do see him making the practice squad. Definitely. He's making the most of his opportunities. Who knows? He might push David Bell off the roster. Depending on David Bell's health, he might just do that. Jamari Thrash has looked well. And of course, Jerry Jeudy is Jerry Jeudy. Harold Fannin has been phenomenal in these practices. I've heard. I can see them use him anywhere on the field. Line him up outside, line him in the slot, put him in motion. That's another thing we're seeing. The people that tell me who are there seeing a lot of motion, which is good. Motion gives the quarterback time to read the defense. You can read what the safety and the linebackers are doing. You put somebody in motion, and they just stand. The defense won't just stand there. You can tell the difference when someone's in motion. You can tell the difference between man coverage and zone coverage right off the bat. That helps the quarterback. So I'm glad to see him going with more motion. That's your Stefanski's offense. What else? Well, now we're gonna have pads starting tomorrow, so I think you're going to see a better offensive line play. Offensive line cannot really block adequately without their pads on. So the defense has appeared to be stronger. Well, it's a natural in practice that defense is always ahead of the offense. But once the offensive line gets in pad, that's what I'm waiting for. Once they get the pads on, then you'll see more hitting, and we'll find out more about the running game, minus Judkins. I hear Dylan Sampson. I had one guy tell me that Dylan Sampson is quicker in person than he is on film. I knew he was fast. I saw him when he played for UT. And apparently he is just as fast. Would I feel better if they signed another running back? Yeah, I would. Gus Edwards is still out there. I know he's 30 years old, but the guy knows how to find the end zone. That's the only place I worry about Dylan Sampson is down by the goal line because of his size. Now, yes, there is a positive. You can slide in between tackles. Defense can't really see you back there. But I would feel better with a big bruising back. You know, they brought in Deontay Foreman for that, and it didn't work out. Let's give Gus Edwards a shot. I mean, why not? But they'll work all this out. Once they get into pads, they'll really see what the players have. So I'm looking forward to next week when the pads come on. Lastly, I know a lot of people gave Andrew Berry a bunch of grief when he talked about Shedeur Sanders speeding tickets and Quinshon Judkins' current legal troubles. Well, he can talk about the speeding tickets because those have been adjudicated. They're done. That legal process is over. So he can talk about it. As for Judkins, he can't talk about it because the league is still investigating. And no, Andrew Berry should not be fired for drafting Judkins. If you're going to fire a GM for not knowing about something that no one else knew about, then the other 31 GMs should be fired, and so should the NFL investigation unit, who investigates these guys before the draft. We found out a couple of things. With the defensive end from Marshall, 2 weeks before the draft, we found out he had legal troubles. Why? Because the league office found it. One of the wide receivers, I can't remember which one, he was one of the top 5 wide receivers, couple of weeks before the draft. Oops, found out he had off-season problems with the law. Why? Because the NFL found out about it. I find it interesting that when Andrew Berry was asked about this, instead of saying, we're still in the investigation process, we want to wait until the investigation's over, and all that other double talk that GMs and coaches say, and by the way, everybody does it, calm down. He said, we're waiting for the facts. Facts. He didn't say we're waiting till the investigation concludes. He said we're waiting to see the facts. That's an odd thing to say for a GM. I pick up on words, I listen, and I always try to listen between the lines, but that was something that was unusual for a GM to say, that he was waiting for the facts. So we'll find out. I do know he's going to be suspended. We found out, but no one knew about this kid's troubles. No one. So quit the knee-jerk. I know people hate Andrew Berry. I don't. I really don't hate him. I didn't like John Dorsey. John Dorsey was a blowhard. John Dorsey drafted Anthony Callaway, a guy who got arrested for smoking dope, and then signed an offensive lineman who later got caught trying to smuggle a van full of marijuana across the U.S.-Mexico border. I mean, and he hired Freddie Kitchens. Sorry, I don't care what John Dorsey did. He could find the next Patrick Mahomes. But hiring Freddie Kitchens, sorry. That guy was a mistake from the beginning. So also, I mean, do you really want to go back to what the team was like between 1999 and 2019? I think a lot of people have forgotten what the team looked like during all those years. When you fire a GM, fire a coach, fire a GM, fire a coach. I mean, they went 1-31 during that process in 2 years. Do you really want to go back to that? Sorry, I don't. I have faith in this front office. I have faith in the head coach. And they're going to be around. They're not going to get fired. It would take a team riot to get them fired. It would take something like what happened to Paul Brown. When Jim Brown and all the stars of the team go into the owner's office, Art Modell, and sit down and say, look, you got to fire Paul Brown because all he cares about is his personal win-loss record and not us making the playoffs. Then, yeah, that's what it would take to get rid of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. Again, they have a plan. They're keeping him because they have a plan to get rid of Deshaun Watson. Everybody wants Deshaun Watson gone. And they have the plan to do it. And I'm going to let them do it because I want Deshaun Watson gone. So, yeah, and that is a true story. That's what happened to Paul Brown. Art Modell didn't just wake up one morning and say he's going to fire Paul Brown. The players came in with Jim Brown leading them saying you got to get rid of him. So if that happens, then yes. Jimmy Haslam will get rid of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. But that's not going to happen. All right. So that's it for today. I thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, and following us here at the Fanatical Elves Network. Just a reminder, go over to our TikTok page, subscribe on our YouTube page. We are just Browns fans like you. We love the Browns. So thank you for joining me today. The Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans for Sports Network, brought to you by Hemisphere Coffee, who they shake the hands of the farmer. I ground up some coffee this morning. I'm probably one of the few people in this country that has a commercial coffee grinder in my kitchen because I used to own a coffee shop. Just ground up some today so I could make coffee for another month. But anyway, thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Steve Gill, and like I said, this has been the Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast. Thank you, and have a great Sunday, and I look forward to tomorrow. They're in pads. You're going to see a difference in the way the players play. So thank you, and Have a great day and go Browns.